I guess if you want to, I would have to look at it from a purely American point of view, where liberalism is much more than what you just described. It's not just about individual liberties; it's about individual opinions that we think that every point of view is a valid one, and that liberals think that that we can also accomplish this in the framework of capitalism, and I think that
But
is fucking wrong.
maybe that's also the misconstrued idea, right? Because maybe even people who, because we all know that people everywhere may make different points of views, and maybe what's happening is that, just like with Christine Noem, as I said, as a liberal myself, I think Christine Noem should have the right to be in the position of power that she is, and she should have the right to express her opinions. I just think that some of her opinions are very dangerous. So maybe that's exactly the thing that
But
it
this is
is,
the
right?
problem
Maybe
with
as a liberal,
liberals. Liberals
yeah.
think that liberals hear the fascists out. They're like, "Oh, let's hear about fascism one more time and let's talk about it." And that's
No,
not.
there is a limit to it. I'll give you that. There is a limit to like liberty doesn't mean freedom to do whatever you want or say whatever you want, right? But it's complicated and it's a tight rope, and obviously because of the complexity of it, some people will misconstrue some arguments and they will fall into a much simpler view. So it will always end up in this position, I think, right? Like,
I mean, the first definition of liberalism, to respect or accept behavior or opinions different from one's own. I'm not a liberal. I don't like, even I don't like the liberals in government. I don't think that liberalism has worked. Liberalism
where are you
marches
reading
us.
that from? Because I'm reading from Wikipedia
Oxford
and
languages, definitions from Oxford languages. In theology, it's that many traditional beliefs are dispensable, invalidated by modern thought, or liable to change. A political and social philosophy that promotes individual rights, civil liberties,
there you go.
and democracy and free enterprise. You see this? Like, maybe it's because I'm in America, but the definitions that I'm getting are not fucking okay. Like this is a philosophy that promotes individual rights, civil liberties, democracy, and free enterprise. Sounds great, right? But as soon as you start with this capitalist idea that we're somehow going to make sure that all our opinions are heard, no, man, I'm just not into it. I
I
mean,
don't
I like the
I
idea
don't
of
think
consent of the governed and all of that, but
I
I
don't
don't
think
think we should be governed.
necessarily I don't think necessarily every opinion should be heard. I think everyone should be allowed to express their opinions. But when it comes to a public forum, I think if you're a public figure, and I don't know exactly what that means, but obviously there you could say that somebody who has 1 million followers is a public figure, and somebody who has 1,000 followers isn't necessarily a public figure, right? Like
Yeah.
you could make this distinction, and when you can maybe at some point draw some form of a line or something, and you just may just mean some form of concise, right? So some form of concessions to it. But if you are a public person, you shouldn't just be allowed. Even your opinion should be held to scrutiny, I
Yeah, but I
think.
also think that you shouldn't be so gleeful at applying that label to yourself and calling yourself a proud liberal. Let's just look at Wikipedia really fast.
I'm a
Liberalism.
proud, so just to be clear, I'm a proud person who is I'm a proud supporter of moral philosophy centered on individual liberty, consent of the governed, equality before the law, and protected rights. Whatever else you understand by liberal, I don't care. What I'm a proud person of is I'm a proud person of individual liberty, consent of the governed, equality before the law, and protected rights.
Let me just look very quickly at Wikipedia. Liberalism is a political and moral philosophy based on the rights of individual liberty, consent of the governed, political equality, right to private property, and equality before the law. Different liberals espouse various and sometimes conflicting views depending on their understanding of these principles, but generally support liberal democracy, private property, market economies, individual rights, including civil rights and human rights, secularism, rule of law, economic and political freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, and freedom of religion. Liberalism is frequently cited as the dominant ideology of modern history, and this is something that I would completely agree with. That to
Yeah.
me is very well said. That's just the first paragraph of a very long Wikipedia page about liberalism. I do think that people should look at it, but it also says not to be confused with libertarianism it says that at the top too, which is kind of fun. It says at the very top, not to be confused with libertarianism. So I mean, like, I don't know. First of all, market economies, private property, which is the illegal designation of ownership of property by non-governmental legal entities, distinguishable from public property. But I think it's also distinguished from personal property and collective and cooperative property. Private property is the means of production in the hands of corporations and oligarchs. So clearly liberalism has gotten us this far. Well, look at what liberalism has done for us. It's gotten us in this shit show of late stage capitalism.
I don't think it's liberalism. I don't think necessarily liberalism is to blame for capitalism. I think that would be a bit disingenuous to say. Because
why?
It's not like, because the right-wing individuals are obviously not aligning with any form of liberalism, right? Or are we talking about the liberalisms that, like, I don't think late-stage capitalism comes from liberalism. I don't think, for example,
how did we get here?
How did we get here? I mean, obviously there are some, like, there's parts of that just to blame the whole thing is wrong, right? Like, if you blame the whole thing, then you say, okay, well then let's take away liberalism. So that means let's take away individual liberties. No, that's not it. There's just parts of it weren't working. So parts of it you fix. It's not all of it. How did we get here? I don't know, fucking people just buying all sorts of shit that they don't need. People,
but the
just
people
letting
did that
themselves...
because of liberalism. Liberalism is a reinforcement of market economies and all sorts of shit. We should talk about this in the.
Yeah, but I just want to be clear. I don't think it should be left, like, as I said with the censorship. I think there should be guardrails for all of it, right? Like, we can't just let it run amok, because that just it serves nobody. And what the guardrails are, I think it should be dependent on each country, and each country should have representatives that decide on the guardrails for themselves.
See, this is so funny. You're always engaged in, like, defending the system, though. You're always on your back foot when it comes to liberals. Always are. They're always defending this. You are. You're saying that we should have a system that has guardrails for this monster called capitalism, because if we just have the right guardrails, we can just keep on going the way we're going. We won't,
because I just don't believe in people, Sky. I just don't believe that. I understand that the perfect system would work, and as you put it, I just don't think that the perfect system works. So therefore we need guardrails. Even if you do create the perfect systems, you still need guardrails, because humans are humans. That's it.
We could destroy
humans
the system.
Are flawed.
The system is what used and discarded people, women who have any kind of who have any type of power, people like Pam Bondi and Kristi Noem. The system put them in place, and the system is the enemy. The women themselves, they had access to feminist thought and feminist legal protections, and they're accountable for the choices they've made with their power. But at the same time, the enemy is not Kristi Noem. We'll just make her the enemy. Her boy, Corey Lewandowski, is more in control than she is. Donald Trump and Stephen Miller are more in control than she is. But the system is actually the devil here. The enemy is the structure that put her in there.
But the patriarchal system, you see, the patriarchy part of the system.
That's liberalism.
Issue. I don't think that's
that.
I don't think patriarchy I don't think liberalism gave us patriarchy. If anything, liberalism is a good gateway towards fighting against patriarchy.
The patriarchy exists because of alt-right, well, not just alt-right, but today in the modern era, right, you have alt-right people, fascists, and we'll hear them out. We'll be like, oh, well, fascism is just another protected
But you're doing the same mistake that George is doing.
Group we need to listen to.
It's funny that you criticize George Martin, because you're making the same mistake as he is. You're essentially strawmanning a little bit the argument. Yeah, because you're saying that the whole system is the issue, that just this one part of liberalism, the fact that they allowed some stupid people to speak, is the issue. But, well, what in your perfect system, Sky, are people not allowed to speak?
Speak is fine, but if you talk fascism, we cut your fucking head off. Yeah, that's be a perfect system. As far as
so
I'm
you see,
concerned.
you should even in your perfect system, you still have the freedom to speak your mind, but with guardrails.
Not with guardrails. No,
So
man,
how
I'm
would you
sorry.
say you're allowed to speak your mind, but if somebody's a fascist, are they not allowed to speak
Well,
their mind?
because we keep on allowing fascism to foment. We allow it to
Yeah, so
fester.
it's a
And we're like, well,
guardrail.
let's hear them out one more time. We'll have guardrails. Every 100 years, we got to have a big conflict where a bunch of people die in
We
order to go
don't.
back. Yes, we do. Every 100 years since the 1400s, we've been doing
We've been
this.
doing that, but that doesn't mean we have to do that. And I think that's what guardrails help, right? That guardrails help this against this idea. You're not allowed to speak about fascism, right?
What you say, not allowed to. I say, go ahead and talk about fascism. Here's the consequences for being a fascist. We're going to immediately
Something
cut
like
your
that,
fucking head
right?
off.
So, exact, something like that, like something to not allow fascism to grow. But those are guardrails. Those are not, that's exactly what I'm proposing also. It's just that you're blaming the whole system for it, whereas the issue, like even in your perfect system, you would still need the same guardrails that I'm speaking of.
Because the system still is a march toward fascism every single time. We're just serfs again. We just always go back to serfdom. Where, like, consider this: today is International Women's Day, and you know how it
Yeah.
started? It didn't start as a branding exercise with fucking corporations putting pink logos on their websites. It started, or some kind of vague empowerment rhetoric. It started as the elision of politics that day, and it was originally a socialist holiday rooted in labor rights and economic
I was
equity.
going to say that. That's what I knew about it, yeah.
Labor rights. I mean, I'm not a socialist, but I'm certainly more of a socialist than I am a fucking capitalist. And
Me too.
every single time we do this, we become more and more like serfs again, where we belong to the corporation. They own the land that we live on. We pay our mortgages to them. We get this pittance of, please, sir, we get the crumbs off their tables and then give it right back to them. Money becomes this weapon to separate us from capital. And that is liberalism, baby. Liberalism gives us that. That is the system
Which
that's
part of
being
liberalism
reinforced.
gives us that?
The free market economy.
Yeah, so you see, you have a problem with one side of it. What else?
Allowing corporations to have freedom of speech as if they're people.
But that's not part of liberalism even. That's a
How do you
misinterpretation
think we got
of
here?
it.
We got
But
here
that's a
because
misinterpretation of it.
that's the system working for the powerful. The
But that's
system
not the system.
works for them, not for us.
It's just that you see when your argument favors that liberalism is the system, you blame liberalism. When your argument favors that capitalism is the system, you blame capitalism. I'm like, okay, but it's
liberalism
not a
is
simple.
capitalism. Capitalism
Liberalism
is a
isn't
component of
capitalism.
liberalism.
Well, not the definition that we just read, right? Not with the definition that we just read.
The definition we just read said market economy is private property. That's corporate. That's corporatism, man.
Wait,
it's-
so do you believe that we should not have private property?
Yes, of course I believe that we shouldn't have private. Well, of course you don't. Okay, but you have to determine what private property is. Public property, personal property, and private property. Private property is the private ownership of capital. So, like owning the factory that makes the widgets, I think is bullshit.
I don't think it
One
means
person
that
should.
necessarily.
That's what private. That's a dude. Look, man. This is well established political philosophy. There's public property where everything is owned. There's private property where individuals or corporations own the means of production. And there's personal property like my stylophone here is mine. It belongs to me. If you stole it, it's mine. You can't. But this doesn't like create any more objects, right?